What the? Where the? Everything is gone except for that apron. So, a quick story. I went to the. Been looking for an upholsterer. That's something that I have done. I've done quite a bit of it, but I want certain things in here that I just don't have the experience to do. I can get the experience, but I don't want to take the learning portion of that experience on this car. So I'll do it on something else that I'm doing for that's probably a little easier. Let's just put it that way. So where I'm at right now is I stripped all of the interior out. I finished a lot. I put connectors in and stuff for the doors and tied it into the fuse box. Kind of got all that cleaned up. Pulled everything out and made a bunch of space over there. You can see the saws over there, and I got everything set up here. So now, as I'm working with the upholsterer, we're making the plans and stuff. I got a month to 2 months, probably 2 months max, to get everything ready. And that is, the guy has to have the car. He says he has to have the car there. And I said, well, you're not going to get the car, but I'll give you the body. Because I still have the micro squirt. I'm going to back up. There. I'm going to convert from the OEM computer to a micro squirt because there's too many. I'm trying to avoid too many trouble codes with this old OBD2 system. And, there's so many things, the purge canister, no ABS. There's so many things that I'm going to continually run into the codes that you can't necessarily conveniently overwrite on a 2001 RAM OBD2 system. They were too locked up in the early 2000s, too secure. I'll say it that way. The way they came. You got to remember, we didn't get into about 2010 when the manufacturer started freeing up the opportunities to do this kind of stuff. To modify the computers. Yeah, you can do. There's a lot of things you can do, and it's kind of a affair. But I'm not going to go there. So anyway, there's Fred rambling again. So in future episodes, I'm going to be pulling the body back off of the frame. The whole plan here was to get all the metal work done, get the body off, and start the chassis again. I'm going to put several things. I'm going to do several things to the chassis, not modifications. In a sense, modifications, but more than anything, just kind of tidy everything up, touch everything up, and finish the rolling chassis with the body off. Let me think here. So the task at hand is that I am making all the interior panels for the car, and being that I got most of the metal work done now on the interior side, now I got to start making the cards for everything here. We know that we have poppers that are intruding into the interior space or into the panel. They're approximately 1 1/4 inch in. They're approximately less than 1 1/4, but about that in at the highest point. If you watch that episode, you'd see why I had to bury them into the door, and you see clearly why I can't go any farther into the door because I only have 5/8 of an inch worth of space. I have to mount the electric motors, but they're all hidden behind the panels. So within the next 4 to 6 weeks, I've got to have all the panels, including the headliner. So what I've learned is that the width of the front door and the width of the rear door is the same on these. In fact, that stamping is so similar, other than the cutout for the rear wheelhouse. Everything below that punch, everything above that punch up is the same. Cool. And I followed that trilogy through the mounting of the solenoids, you know, so on and so forth. In fact, that's the original door handle way back there. That is a mirror of the door handle, the locations for the holes, the stamped holes up there. That being said, if I put a door panel on that door above that line, it will fit on this door. Conversely, that one will fit on that door. So I really only need to make two. Okay? If I plug off the door handle and, you know, any mechanisms on the door, you know, don't have the holes in it, I can flop that one for behind the door here, and this one for behind the door there. So again, I only need to make two, and what I'm going to make them out of is fiberglass. The bottom is going to be a card, and the top section with the form is going to be what I'm going to show you. So the card will be the flat card that rolls through the whole thing. You know, the kick panel will all be flat because the seat area up front, you can't have door pockets, you can't put speakers in. The doors are too doggone thin. You know, there's no space to do stuff like that. And so you have to go out. If you go out, you're going to hit your seats because you got no space this way on these old cars. And therein what is why I put the speakers in the console. So right there. So what am I doing? Well, I know what my distances are, so a bunch of 3-inch ply or half-inch plywood. And so now I stack the half-inch plywood 3 high. Again, back to the early days, all the way through this process. Always make them in pairs. So I've got a mirror image going down there, as well as up here. I have screws in. I did glue and clamp, and I have screws in waiting for the glue to dry. They're sticking out the back, so on and so forth. Here we have the latch opening. And basically what I did is I progressively built. So the first sheet I needed to relieve for some stampings that went into the interior. I needed to relieve for the front and rear hinge area. And I needed to relieve for the rear door jamb area. It's 1.5 inches thick at this point. So the areas, by comparison, this bottom is relieving for these two stamped marks. There's an elevation on the hinge that this takes out, and then it dips down for that area, and this is clearing out all the space up here. The door, the garnish molding ends right here, 3/8 of an inch from the top surface, the garnish molding. And then this card will sit on, provide the opening there, will sit approximately right there on the car. And so this particular shape as it stands is not what I'm after. In fact, the top is where the garnish molding is, and it'll immediately come out in radius up here. And this profile up here, 1.5 inches. When the door is closed, the distance from this radius out to the door is 1 3/8 inches. And I put these aprons on because I wanted to cover You know, the wiring. You see that in the last video or last couple of videos. I don't remember specifically when, but very recently I did that, and my videos are sequential. But so I have this bead that wraps around and then turns and goes in. That panel is going to flush out here. This 1 3/8, so I have some material to take off of that 1.5 inch panel, and then I'm going to copy this profile right here into the panel, onto the door surface, come around the door poles, the interior handles, and there's a lot of notes on here. They're just concepts and ideas. And come up and make sure that I cover this area. So there'll be elevation changes in here, the highest of which is 1.5 inches. So these are glued up, just glued up and screwed. Then I grabbed the phone. So in combination of that plywood, some chiseling and sculpting, in that plaster of Paris, I am going to make a plug. And from that plug, I will make 2 fiberglass molds. One for side 1, one for side 2, of which will be the front driver, rear passenger, a driver's side rear quarter, and conversely the opposite for that. Clearly, in some cases, I'll have to block this off. I'll have to eliminate the door handle for the rear quarters, so on and so forth. All that's pretty simple to do. So I'm just plotting all my points on here and then getting ready to kind of come up with a design for the 1930 hot rod. So please stay with me. All right. I got a lot of stuff written on here. So I made a router template. I got the router out. And at this point, I'm just going to plunge. So if you recall from the last little clip here, my stack is 1.5 inches, three layers of 1/2 inch plywood. You know, whatever that comes to be. Actually, I should just kind of get a snapshot of that. So in this case, I'm over. So it looks like 1 3/8. Not 1.5 inches, because it's like whatever, 29/64. I don't remember what it is. 29/64, I think, is 1/2 inch plywood. In any event, I stuck it. The panels are done, pulled the screws out, glue is dry, clamped it to the door, and measured the gap between the edge of this, the depth from this to the surface of the plywood, and I come up with I need to take 3/16 out to get to that surface. Well, that's all cool. Oh, yeah, I did measure that. That's all cool, but I still need to allow for upholstery and all that. So I'm going to take 3/4 of an inch out. Now it's bothering me. What did I measure from this area here? Yeah, it's 1 inch and just under 1 3/8. But still, I went in there and attached it to the door, and I need to remove 3/16. So I want that in this area here. The door handle is going to be located about where it mounts in the door. It's not going to be a it's going to be a type door handle. What the heck is it for? Like a Pathfinder, Nissan Path. I just ordered them. They're going to be here on Friday. And anyway, it's a pull-out style. and then I'm going to allow for my switch to be in here somewhere, and so on and so forth. So I did a line drawing of where I want this dished area to be. This is going to get radiused here and here, so it'll come out, come back in, and I'd really like to try to do an inside radius on here as well. And so that would be good, but I think I'll build all the inside radius with plaster of Paris, because my elevations are what's most important right now, versus the texture, versus the total final shape. Like this, when this is all taken down, this too will radius out here, because I want to get below this area, and that's where the door card from that rest of it down will go. So I'm just in the process of routing it out, and basically I made my profile, had to add a little in here when I jigsawed it out. I didn't like it, so ran my straight edge across here, added a little fiberglass to it, and then carefully sanded and established my radius. So this will go here. I measured from this edge up to this stack of plywood here. I have this and the mirror image of it setting over here. I identified where this edge and this edge land, so that I have symmetry. I've dimensioned these all the way through the process to be identical, as close to identical as possible anyway. It's wood. I'm ready to route it out. Back in here then, of course, using the router, my router is 4 1/8, 2 3/4, 5.5 inch diameter base. So 2 3/4 away is the edge of the router bit, so it's a 6 inch. But I mean, and I'm putting a 1/2 inch plunge bit in it. So it's going to route this line right here and just clean out this area. And then of course I'll have to clean out all this area. So I'll probably clean out all this area and then do that edge. So that's where I'm at. I'll get both of them done and we'll come back and look at it. Okay, I'm going to bring you in. So I dug out, about at a layer. There's a little bit here where I started, because when you don't have a lot of support on the base, you're going to dig a little. But that's the beauty of That's the beauty of plaster of Paris. So now I've swept down. And I stopped here because this edge right here is higher than this edge. And I didn't notice that. So I'll have to run a couple of screws in or something in to get that down. And then I'll finish it off. Flip this over, line it up, and do the other side. Then I can come in and I can block sand this smooth and go from there, These are all kind of scary, and I could be using a larger bit, but I sized everything for a 1/2 inch, so I figured I'd just plunge the whole thing with a 1/2 inch. So again, the finish is going to be for a fiberglass piece, so no matter what, this has to get coated with a plaster of Paris to build the plug. So okay, hoofda Maria. So I've got that profile out on both of them, and went with a 1/2 inch radius on the outside edge and on this edge. Okay, So I held the router up with the stack in the middle and then just carried the bearing across the edge, but supported it on this side, you know, between the two here, and then on this side on the way here. Of course, again, remember, it's all gets covered in plaster of Paris, but then this winds up becoming the floor, right? You just sand to the floor, but you can get it dialed in. So I have to dress the edges, which are light radiuses, you know, so the upholstery can go around the corners. And I have to get some radius into this, and which I can probably sand a little bit of radius into this, where you're going to pull that vinyl around. Again, that elevation probably won't be the ticket. It'll be, you know, buried in the fiberglass. I could wrap it around, wrap the fiberglass, have an edge there, and maybe I will. I don't know. And then on here, so this is radiused here, so now I'm going to do an inside radius all the way down, but that's going to have to be done manually. I'll do that by hand and with plaster of Paris. And then I do want to copy this profile down the door. So I've got an idea. I think if I just rolled out one long piece and then carefully placed it into here, it should approach this elevation. If not, I'll leave it low. I'll lower this, I guess is what I should say, and then embed it into here. That might be the trick. Just taking scarf out enough material to drop those beads into here. I mean, it's not a very long run, and it's probably more effective and certainly straighter and more accurate if I just lay in a couple of metal pieces into there. So again, we're just making a plug for a mold, so that's where we're at. So I'm just going to dress these edges, I guess, at this point. Have to tie this one in a little bit better. Well, once these are all everything's radiused, I guess it'll be just dandy. So we'll just keep sanding, and I'll drag you along. All right, got all the edges sanded, everything radiused. I am going to pull this down in. Everything radiused. Again, this will be plaster. That inside radius will be plaster. That's just so easy to sand. Grab a piece of pipe of the diameter, wrap some sandpaper around it, and we'll everything radiused except for these, because I just rolled a couple of these, sanded the schnout out of the bottom of them, marked inside the car where they go, and what I'll do is just basically bond these on, and then they will continue with the door. They will continue if I don't put them on upside down. If I don't put them on upside down, I'm on the wrong side. They will continue to bring that into the door and dead end here. Now I'm going to leave them in the panels too. I might have mentioned it, I was thinking it actually, but I was thinking taking them out for the rear. But now that I think about it, I'm going to do a little demonstration. So this will be the rear quarter, and this will be the rear passenger door when the door closes. So when I originally was thinking this through, I was thinking those strips, they got to drift off into Never Never Land, and they do. They drift off into Never Never Land. They end because of the complexity of rolling a seriously long bead or sanding or whatever and trying to keep that consistent all the way down. Well, now I have it in this impression here, and it'll be wrapped right here. It's going to work out just dandy. Now when we get to the upholstery part of the final fiberglass piece, this will get foam. All this will get foam, but it'll terminate on this corner, and then this will just be glued directly on. That's the same thing that I'm doing with the bead roll on the rear package tray and the front. The console will get foamed, but the front will not. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I know I bounce back and forth, but it all ties together somehow. So when that console slides up to here, I have an allowance, enough allowance to wrap that foam around tight with the, end the foam there. Don't bring the foam around the corner, but to wrap that vinyl around there and get into here. But I don't have enough allowance for this to widen out and crush the foam up. I don't like that pinched off look. So I want all that definition to pop out on the console. And quite frankly, with a double stitch all the way down this, or what we call a French stitch, I guess, all the way down this will be an insert, and talking with the upholstery guy, that'll be glued down to there with a 1/4 inch or whatever sticking in, and then I'll make an insert that'll go into there. And of course those are inserts, the cup holders. So they'll be able to stitch all this out, roll that down, and get it looking dandy. This isn't obviously going to have any stitching. It's just wrapped, right? It's just wrapped around and tied into there. Same thing with those panels. They're not going to get foam. These here, that bottom apron, we're in the discussions on that. I'd like this surface to be painted and this to be foamed or upholstered and wrapped around and terminated under here, painted, and then this will continue the upholstery look. But again, just bonded to the sheet metal, not padded. Maybe the top dash part padded, but so jumping back on this, it winds up tying in that symmetry as much as possible when you start to think about it. So now I'll bond those down, and my door handles aren't coming till for 2 days. So I need to get those located before I go and plaster all this. So now at this point I'll just clamp and bond these and let everything cure. I might be able to pull some plaster and start to shape this, but these are looking like I want them to look, and I think they're going to turn out great. Again, on these 1930s, you can't have a lot of form going into the car. And we all know, if you've been keeping up with this, that I need to clear the poppers and integrate a interior mechanical door latch, and then get my power windows in here too. The latches on this car are extremely far forward, which is fine. The doors are extremely short. They're only 26.5 inches long. So but the seats sit back, so I'll probably have the latch in the original factory location, but the door switch behind it in the solid area, and then the rest will be foamed. But again, you can't get a lot of mountains and hills in here because there's not enough room in the interior to accommodate that. So I'm trying to tie in the theme of a 1930, and while at the same time get some aesthetics into it. So we'll keep plugging away, guys. Well, this is where I got anyway. It's date night. I got to get rocking and rolling, but I just wanted to do a quick one and show you that I just drug this once. This is a piece of exhaust pipe. It's actually the flange. It's 2.5 inch pipe, so this is closer to like a 2 3/4 or something like that. And I got that nice rounded edge. I'll sand this before I do the other one. Then I just drug this across to give me a profile. So now I left a little ridge here and all that. And I'll polish that and drag it again. And I had some leftover Duraglass, so I put it in, and I take this down. But the thing is that'll bind in nice and give me a nice flat surface before I approach it with the plaster of Paris. So it's really coming along, and I'm happy with it, and we'll just keep plugging away. Tomorrow's a new day, but it's date night tonight. Steak. Okay, you may have noticed in the last clip that there were screws in each of these, and so those are the beads that were rolled. I put panel bond in along this low area here. I chamfered, well there you can see a hint of it, I chamfered the screw holes, ran them in, then touched them with the grinder, and then just hit them here with the Duraglass, both sides. This morning I cut everything in and sanded a little bit on here, but not trying to achieve perfection right now, just flatness. And some may be thinking, you know, why just go straight to plaster of Paris? And the short answer is it's wood, and plaster of Paris is a water-based product, and as a result I don't want to create any warpage. So there's why I use the reinforced fiberglass. It's gonna seal and secure all of these surfaces, and then I can block it out, and then I can achieve a very, 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 very smooth surface with the plaster of Paris that I can manipulate extremely easily. You know, 200, 220 sandpaper, as long as you just quick block it, 220 will just bring that surface down to perfection. And then of course I could take it all the way out to 1,000, but not on the plaster of Paris. I'll have to put some paint on here and go from there and block the paint. So I tried to fill in some of the gap. You know, I just used up all my fiberglass, but you know, try to narrow these up here a little bit, and so they fit precisely into the door. The shape fits precisely into the door opening and all that stuff. There will be some trimming, you know, there's minor variations in the door plates, but so I'll probably close these out past that point, leave the opening to where it is, this whatever the distance is there, leave that to where it is because that's just right on the surface, but then probably get a little more on the inside so that I can trim them for each door so they look very, very, very good. The other thing is these are relieved for the hinges, you know, and I will have to complete that on the top side. The hinges do extend down. There you go. They do extend down, and I didn't do the entire hinge pocket in the second piece. It's not that critical because this is just a copy of that, but the fiberglass will need to go completely down. So the next step of this process is I still need flanges, right? So at the top, let me show you, I'm 3/8 of an inch down. You may have seen that in earlier videos. My line, you can kind of see the hint of the line. Well, here it's a little more defined. So I'm going to have a flange. This is where the garnish molding goes, but I'll screw it to the door panel up here. It'll secure up here. I'll probably use hidden panel fasteners around the rest of it, but up here I'll just screw it in, and the garnish molding will cover those screws. So when I start laying out the fiberglass on here, I'll need to establish a flange on the top and a flange on the bottom. However, on the bottom, you can see there's a pretty good elevation there. This is going to have a channel in it so that the lower door panel can tuck up under that and go on, and that's just a slab, this flat panel. So I'll need to build that into the mold too. But at this point, What I'm going to do is now these are like 10 inches tall or something in that neighborhood, a little over 9 inches tall. So I'm going to go get a 2x12, select a 2x12 that's nice and straight, and then I'm going to screw this down to the 2x12 so that I have a flange on either end, and that should pretty well complete my mold, right? Or my plug, so that I can build the mold off of it. So I'm nearly at the phase of getting her done. I'm just going to go get a 6-foot 2x12. This is like 26.5 inches. And I think Menard sells a 6. I think the big box stores sell a 6-foot section. So I'll grab one of those. I'm going to grab the hardboard so I can start on the other interior panels. Well, these are all getting cured out. So here we go. So I went to save big money, and the 2x12s, they did have 6-footers, but they were junk. So I opted for medium density fiberboard. Bought a really nice decorative wallpaper finish. Anyway, I got both of them on. This is a double-sided wallpaper finish because the back side is that color and the front side. One side is that color and the other side is that color. So yeah, a 2x4, so I ripped them down to size. Typically, you're leaving a couple 2 or 3 inches for your flange. I don't see the need to do that. But the whole point of that then is to make sure everything is flat, right? Because you're going to wind up sealing down. You're going to build your mold, and then you're going to have a flange all the way around the mold so you can set up for glass the final pieces. And so it's very important that it's flat. So I coated everything, both of them. I coated both of them with a plaster of Paris, and I got it all over. But the really nice thing about plaster of Paris is, 120 grit will take it right on down very quickly. It's still curing a little bit, but I put one coat down, I sanded it, and then I put another coat down, and there's still some blemishes and things like that. And I'm not too worried about that. I might fix those before I spray it. The thing is that if I fix those with plaster of Paris because it will sand. Once you get down to where I have that fiberglass reinforced Bondo or kitty hair or whatever you want to call it, Dura whatever, that stuff is so hard that when you sand around it, the material around it is softer and it leaves high spots. So what I'll do is I'll block this all down, and then I'll fill it with surfacer, spray it with maybe 2 coats of primer surfacer, depending on how flat it is, maybe 3 coats. Let that cure out, and then I'll just block the whole thing out completely. I built up the material. Again, this stuff sands so easy. 80 grit, and I could strip this off and swipe that way and back. But I'm putting a little bit of chamfer. You can see maybe. But I'm putting a little taper all the way around, so I'll come back and sand. It's not much of a taper, but I want to make sure that this releases from the mold and get those inside corners nice and sharp, and get it ready for spraying. So plan is to have it blocked down, get it in primer surfacer, and if I need to, I can go around with some lacquer based finger in some spot putty, I guess, or urethane based, but finger in the spot putty if I need to. That'll slow me down because then I'll need to come back and put a coat on it. But in any event, get it all in surfacer, block it all down, wet sand it out to I don't know, probably 600, And then the thing about surfacer is it's absorbent. So you don't want to use surfacer as your finish for the plug. Then I'll come back and just spray paint it with enamel or something like that. And put a couple, 2-3 coats on that, or just clear coat. Maybe I'll get some clear coat out of there, just aerosol clear coat, and get quite a few coats on there. And then I can sand that, wet sand that out to 1,500 or 2,000 to get it really nice. I have I have some mat, I have some cloth, enough to build the molds. I did order some more materials, but I do have enough fiber resin and cloth and mat to build these 2 molds. So I'll get that going. Hopefully by the end. Right now it's Thursday, so hopefully by the end of the weekend. And then start making panels. The good news is that the door handles are coming tomorrow. So the door handles and the window switches, I'll need to probably do some additional work on there. So when those come, I don't want to get it into surfacer until I am confident that I've got a position for them. And if there's any additional shaping, of course, I'll just use the plaster for that. So there we are. 3 of these and 3 of those should be coming soon. Okay, I think if you noticed in that that high speed, you could see I was holding my there you go, my sanding block at a little bit of an angle, and that was so that I could create some draft on all the corners. This thing pops out of the fiberglass mold. So now it's all plastered up. You can see I put a significant amount of draft in here. This winds up getting cut to fit into the door opening, and I decided I would just fill it in and cut it because each one of the doors might have a minor difference. And then bead this pocket. Now again, this will retain the window switch and the door latch. So all of this will be covered in vinyl. It'll be pressed, rolled around, and glued into here. And then this will have, the plan is for this to have a trim piece that will be the accent color. So this will all match the interior color. This will match the accent color of the center of the seats, the engine, that kind of stuff. There'll be some forming to do on this because I'm going to install the window switches, but I'll install, there they are. But I'll install the pocket. Here's a good example. This is what comes with them, but I just need to construct that little bit of a pocket. And then of course the profile for the door handle will have to be integrated into that, and I don't know what that's going to be yet. So I may prime this. They're supposed to be here today, and if they are, great. I can go to work on that in the plaster, but realistically, more than anything, there's probably just going to be holes in here for the cover plate to hold those to be formed, and that'll more than likely be metal. All right, so now we have a coat of primer on. The interesting thing is, you know, it's starting to suck it in. You can see a little bit of modeling right there. Not a big deal. But the one thing about, look at that. So everything starts to come out. The plaster, of course, sucked that surfacer right up. But there's little chips and undulations inside these corners. It looks like, you know, there was a war. So I'll just have to go around once she's, I'll probably just get a couple, two, maybe I'll put 3 on. But I mean, that's all undercut. I didn't see that because it packs with the plaster. You know, while you're sanding it, I should have blown it off and inspected it. But the thing is still, I'm not going to come back and put plaster on. The surfacer is going to do a build on it. I'll wet sand that build down. I'll come back with a cheap, like a lacquer based or you know, spot putty, and just come in and something that's going to sand really easy as the primer, I guess, and go around the whole thing, and then get a couple coats. I mean, if I need to, a couple more coats of this. If I don't need to, just hit it with a spray bomb, just some enamel, Rust-Oleum or something, you know. So wait till this flashes and then get a couple more coats on it. Well, after some dirty, sloppy, messy, you can not see much of it. I did clean up, but I sanded again. So let's review. I used that red lacquer based filler, thinking I'll just block this thing out, and you know, I blocked on the block sanded on the plaster with a small, you know, like a 6-inch for the most part, but you can clearly see that after 3 coats of primer surfacer, I wasn't totally flat. So where you see surfacer now, you know, I've cut through to the plaster. The wood is my floor, or the fiberglass is my floor, the fiberglass mud. So, you know, depending on where it's at. But on the edges, I ran them through the saw, right? I sanded them, I did all that stack, and then I plastered over them and I blocked across the plaster. But clearly, as things cure out and shift and move, again, mount it to something rigid, and this is my flange anyway, and get in there and get them done. Corners, inside corners are always need to be dressed. Got those done. The metal pieces, you know, where I ran the screws in, got those done. But even as I'm doing the corners at the ends, you know, where the router went in and routed this off, you know, I breathe. I breathe, and because I breathe, I moved a little bit. There's a little bit of a low spot, but I'm going to stop because I'm going to have to respray this. I mean, that'll block out. So, and the same thing. So now I'm just going to go around with a product that has very low shrinkage, and it's just a glazing putty, but a polyester rather than a lacquer based. And in here, you know, it just didn't work out. These are all low spots. You know, wherever it's white now is blocked straight. And I check with a straight edge. Because that's the bottom of the panel and that's the top of the panel. And you want it not necessarily, you know, you got a lot of sins when it comes to upholstering and stuff that you can cover up. But if you start right, you'll end right. And so you just take the time to do it. And you can see here, I've got low spots. Of course, the big horizontal areas, I mean, and it lays this way, the paint flows in that way, are basically just the little chips and dings or whatever, marks. And those came out good. So I'm just going to come in, clean those up, very carefully sand those down, and hit them with another coat of surfacer and go from there. I'll step back on these. Remember, I relieved these so that it'll come out of the mold. But I wasn't very clear. These are all tapered that way, but you got to remember where these go on the door. This is just going to be cut out shallow to maintain that. We're just capturing this in that piece. So that's going flush with this, and then it's got to be cut out and around here. So the thickness here is whatever is, that's, if I remember right, that's 3/4 of an inch. This is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to need, you know, maybe 3/4, half of an inch, 3/4 of an inch around here, and then it cut out for there. So I didn't spend any time down here because this is the plug. The plug makes the mold. Flip it over. We're going to look at the inverse of this shape. And then we're going to be laying fiberglass in. So I'll lay in enough fiberglass, but I'm not going to glass this area per se. Everything's drafted, right? Jost a little bit so that you can pull it out of the plug. Everything's sanded and flush. And now I started marking. And I wrote prime here because this will cover, I can feel it, but it'll cover in prime. I chipped out not just plaster, but a little bit of wood. That's a plywood edge, so that'll just get filled. But in any event, that's just going to walk around them and hit them with the Evercoat, the glazing putty, and block them a little bit and hit them with primer. And again, primer surfacer, high build primer, whatever you want to call it. And then I'll block those down to 320 or 400, and then I'll spray paint them, and then I'll begin polishing them out. So I got my primer surfacer out. Decided since I did, I might as well hit the console too. So got him cleaned up and sprayed. What am I looking at here? Oh, it's the light line. So these are good. I got a little extra material in the corners, and I'll need to sand and clean those up a little bit. That's no big deal. I noticed on this side here, I did fill that divot, so I'm piling it on right there. But I mean, I can get that before I prep it for building the mold. But anyway, these turned out really nice. I'm happy with them. There's just a couple of little tiny touch-ups. This has got a few touch-ups, but you know, like sanding off the sags. Anyway, sags in the corners because I spray, and then, you know. But and then I do have a little bit of a low area here and a couple of pinholes right there, so a couple, 3 or 4. But even the tray turned out good. I didn't do anything other than hit that with 180 grit, but this will turn out really nice. This will turn out really nice when it's done. So moving along.